Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Mary Graham Davis, Chair of the Board of Trustees here at Mount Holyoke College, and a warm welcome to all of you on a very cold day. On behalf of the board, I am delighted to be able to welcome all of you, students, faculty, staff, emeriti, alumni here in person, and those joining us from many parts of the world because we're streaming this video. I'd also like to offer a very special welcome to Claude de Grandrue, who is here with us, an honorary degree recipient and a former trustee of Mount Holyoke College, and she's here from Paris. So a warm welcome. I'd also like to welcome parents, neighbors, and friends, and distinguished guests, and many community leaders and elected officials who are joining us today. They are great friends and wonderful supporters of Mount Holyoke College. You may recall in 1837, a remarkable experiment began. Mary Lyon, a disarmingly modest young woman from the hill towns of western Massachusetts, set into play a truly radical idea that higher education must be available to women. 5 years earlier, in a letter to one of her mentors, she had written, quote, "Could I be permitted to labor and spend my days in clearing the ground for that which is destined to continue and to exert an extensive and salutary influence on female education from generation to generation. It would be the height of my ambition," unquote. In founding Mount Holyoke Female Seminary in 1837, Mary Lyon challenged the prevailing opinions that women were mentally and physically unfit for the rigors of higher learning. Against tremendous odds, she established a seminary with a demanding admission requirement and a curriculum equivalent to that offered at men's colleges, such as Amherst and Yale. Despite hard economic times and skepticism that such a bold endeavor for women could gain support, she applied her genius for fundraising and established the foundation of Mount Holyoke's endowment. Her institution was, indeed, destined to continue. And so we are here today, 175 years after Mount Holyoke first opened its doors, exactly this day, as you might recall, celebrating Mary Lyon's remarkable achievement and the generations of students who, afforded a Mount Holyoke education, have become women of influence in their careers, in their communities, in the world. To begin our ceremony, we will hear remarks from distinguished guests. John R. Hine, Chair of the South Hadley Select Board, and John Sybeck, the 2nd Hampshire District State Representative. First, John Hine. John, thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It is an honor to be here this afternoon on behalf of the town of South Hadley in marking the 175th anniversary of Mount Holyoke College. 175 years ago, a pioneering institution for the education of women opened here as the first women's college in the world. That opening came with the support, assistance, and goodwill of the people of South Hadley and surrounding communities. Since then, the college has grown and developed into a world-renowned institution. I would like to think that the town has been a part of that by not only providing basic day-to-day services, but as well a quality of life and community that has allowed the college to flourish. Certainly, Mount Holyoke College has been an integral part of the day-to-day life of many South Hadley residents. During its long history, It has provided employment to many residents. They often lived in college houses and certainly were very much a part of the college community. Longtime residents talk fondly about ice skating on the lower lake with bonfires and hot chocolate, and about Christmas parties right here in Chapin Hall, with gifts for all the kids from town. Over the years, many young women graduates from South Hadley High School have been given the opportunity to continue their education here through the town grant program. And to this day, many residents sharpen their tennis games on the Mount Holyoke courts. Over time, we have seen partnership between college and town grow as we reach out to each other to develop new connections, connections that strengthen our schools, our businesses, our community. Clearly, this partnership enhances the quality of life in our town, and we hope enhances the quality of education, the educational experience for Mount Holyoke students. Today's celebration brings the good wishes and support of tens of thousands of alumni, students, faculty members, and friends of the college from around the world. Let me, on behalf of the South Hadley residents, lend my voice to this celebration. South Hadley is proud to be home with the first women's college in the world. We value our relationships with faculty and staff of this great institution, and we welcome the students from around the world who come here each year. Congratulations, Mount Holyoke. I'd like to now introduce Representative John Sybeck.
Thank you, and welcome all of you. It truly is an auspicious occasion and a day of celebration. And this day of celebration could not come at a better time or a better week. Mount Holyoke College has certainly been instrumental in terms of the development of women, the advocacy of women, the power of women, and what women can do. And no better time to do it than this week, when it was women who actually influenced what happened in this country on Tuesday, and a woman broke the glass ceiling in Massachusetts to become the first senator from this Commonwealth. It truly is a day, a week, and a weekend for celebration. Now, for those of you who are students, I have a challenge. I have a challenge to offer you. And that is, when you come back for the 200th anniversary, for the 225th anniversary, for the 250th anniversary, recall this date and see if it is on that date as auspicious occasion as it is today. The impact of Mount Holyoke College is felt throughout this Commonwealth, throughout the world. South Hadley, as you just heard, is appreciative. South Hadley would be nothing like it is. It would be no different than any other community if it not for Mount Holyoke College. And the thing that we take pride in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, obviously, is education. We have fine institutions, both public and private. And so it is also a very proud day for the entire Commonwealth of Massachusetts to be here, for me to be here, representing our good friend Senator Rosenberg, who couldn't be with us. And so what I have for President Pasquarella, for Lynn, is a citation from the House and Senate, which I'll read. But with Lynn here, I have one other challenge, one other thing for you students to watch, because there's one other opportunity, I think, for women, one other glass ceiling that needs to be broken. I'm looking forward to the day, and I know this person next to me is too, we will see the first female commissioner of baseball. And with that, let me read, I will defer to my good friend, the Senator. From the Commonwealth of Massachusetts State Senate, an official citation. It says, be it known that the Massachusetts Senate hereby extends its congratulations to the members of the Mount Holyoke College community in recognition of the joyous celebration of your 175th anniversary of Mount Holyoke College. Be it further known that the Massachusetts Senate extends very best wishes for continued success. This citation be duly signed by the President of the Senate, attested to, and a copy thereof transmitted by the Clerk of the Senate. It's signed by Therese Murray, the first woman president of the Massachusetts Senate, attested by William Welsh, the clerk, signed by Stan Rosenberg, and I have one from the House for myself. Congratulations. Thank you for inviting me, and I look forward to the 200th.
In the fervor of youth that is strong, the courage of right is thy garland, our lives alma mater thy song. So from east and from west now we gather, and united in the victory. All years are as one, and their loyal pledge, Mount Holyoke forever shall be. Mount Holyoke forever shall be.
Mount Holyoke, founded by Mary Lyon in 1837, is an independent women's college in the liberal arts tradition. 4 years of college are a mosaic of varied colors and patterns, composed of many persons, many activities. It is knowing the old and experiencing the new. It is the adventure of seeking the unknown, as well as the excitement of creating on one's own. It is 4 years of rich intellectual experience, lasting friendships, and never to be forgotten moments.
The spirit of Mount Holyoke hasn't changed, and I mean, we go back, Mary Lyon, I mean, she said there had to be, it was not just higher education, it was education, a broader education for women. And there had to be science, and there had to be labs and a library. And the men sort of shook their heads, women's brains weren't equipped to take in things like that, you know. But she did get enough men convinced that they supported her. As we drove into the campus, both of us said, we both felt like we were coming home, yet our experiences at college were very different, and we were 60 years apart. So there's still that, whatever it is, it's there.
I think the best preparation for a career, no matter what that career is a liberal arts education. The best thing that we can do for students is to teach them to be able to propose, construct, and evaluate arguments, to anticipate and respond to objections, to communicate clearly and effectively. And with that education, they can do anything.
Through the heart of a new day's endeavor, breathes the life of the old days that live. For what thou hast given we honor, but we love thee for what we can give. So when soft in a whisper thou callest, for the treasures unlocked by thy key, our achievements, our hopes, and our glorious faith shall answer Mount Holyoke to thee, shall answer Mount Holyoke to thee.
I'm Lynn Pascarella. I'm the president of Mount Holyoke College. Thank you. In 1834, Mary Lyon wrote, quote, "I'm about to embark in a frail boat on a boisterous sea. I know not whither I shall be driven, or how I shall be tossed, nor to what port I shall be directed." Lyon's courageous journey was undertaken with the quest of providing a solid foundation for the establishment of a permanent institution for the education of women. According to Lyon, quote, "The permanency of an institution is found in its perpetual vitality and its continued prosperity and usefulness." When the doors of Mount Holyoke opened on November 8, 1837, our founder was steadfast in her conviction that the principle of educational excellence for women at the center of this mission could indeed be upheld. What she could not have imagined are the ways in which Mount Holyoke's perpetual vitality and its usefulness have evolved over the past 175 years, or the extent to which this anniversary would serve as a celebration of Mount Holyoke's historic role in higher education. Characterized by innovation, Mount Holyoke has continually reaffirmed Mary Lyon's vision of vitality and usefulness. During the Great Depression, Mount Holyoke faculty offered courses at the YWCA in Hartford for students who paid $250 a year in tuition. Now, 75 years after the experiment in Hartford, our perpetual vitality is marked by the quality of our curriculum, the preeminence of our faculty, the dedication of our staff, the vibrancy of our creative community, and the strength of our student body, the latter of which is enhanced by our extraordinary diversity. In fact, it came as no surprise to those of us on Mount Holyoke's campus when we were ranked first in the country for international students by Newsweek last year, followed by Yale, Macalester, and Princeton. Indeed, our diversity is one of Mount Holyoke's most significant assets, not only because it is a critical component of a truly liberal education, but because it provides an environment for study and reflection that is a microcosm of the world in which people live and work beyond college. But while our vitality and our prosperity are incontrovertible, what should be made of the continued usefulness of women's education? Just last summer, in a letter to the Boston Globe, one reader questioned why women's colleges continue to adhere to single-sex education when even such long-standing bastions of male power as the Augusta National Golf Club have decided to set aside their male-only policy. The author of the letter, and anyone who questions the value of women's education in contemporary society, should be reminded first and foremost that while the role of women in America has changed dramatically over the past 75 years, we still have far to go, as evidenced by the 2011 World Economic Forum's Global Gender Gap Report. The report concluded that women remain well behind men in true critical areas: economic equality and political power. In fact, for all of the rhetoric around women's progress and the disappearing male, women hold fewer than 20% of all national decision-making positions. Thus, in her article, The Myth of the Male Decline, Stephanie Kuhns asks, quote, "How is it that men still control most important industries, especially technology, occupy most of the positions on the list of the richest Americans, and continue to make more money than women who have similar skills and education? And why do women make up only 17% of Congress?" The report also noted that despite improvements, women's average earnings remain lower than men's, and women and children are still more likely than men to be among the poor. Mothers are less likely to be hired than men with the same qualifications, and if they are hired, they earn on average $1,000 less. When women do rise to the managerial ranks, they earn only 73% of what their male counterparts earn. And at the highest echelons, only 4% of the CEOs in Fortune's top 1,000 companies are female. Further, as women gain prominence in areas that were previously all male, the pay for those jobs declines in relation to similarly skilled work. A recent study out of Yale confirmed additional hidden biases against women, this time in the STEM disciplines, science, technology, engineering, and math. Findings revealed that established scientists at top research universities, both male and female, unconsciously rate women scientists as less capable, less worthy of hiring, and less deserving of mentoring than men who have identical credentials. In addition, they proposed starting salaries for men that averaged 14% higher than those for women. The social forces that limit access and persistence of women and girls in the sciences extend around the globe. The Institute of Physics issued a report last month indicating that nearly half, 49% of all state schools in England do not send any girls on to study A-level physics. However, those who attended girls' schools were 2.5 times more likely to study A-level physics. As I noted in a letter to the New York Times in reaction to these studies, our commitment to women's education will continue to be an important factor in achieving parity. Mount Holyoke's laboratories are free of the sort of gender biases revealed in the Yale study. It's no accident that Mount Holyoke and our sister institutions have outstanding track records in producing graduates who go on to earn PhDs in the sciences. And the fact that every student leadership position on our campus is held by women paves the way for our graduates to enter the world ready to make their mark and to encourage other women to do the same. Efforts like these, multiplied thousands of times during an academic year, point to the continuing importance of women's colleges. Moreover, we must remember that not all discrimination against women is hidden or unconscious. Mount Holyoke's continued commitment to providing access for women around the world, regardless of socioeconomic background, contests those who would deny education to half of the population. A stark reminder of this reality came with the attempted murder of 15-year-old Malala Yousafzai on a Pakistani school bus by extremists who attacked her because she is an articulate and compelling advocate for the education of girls. Accused of harboring obscene and westernized notions, she remains in a British hospital under continued death threats. Another instance of bravery in the fight for educational access for girls was brought to my attention by one of our recent graduates, Elena from the class of 2011. Elena sent me a note about her friend's mother, who was cited as one of CNN's Heroes of the Week for starting the Zabuli Education Center in Afghanistan. The center was established in the midst of 185 documented attacks on schools and hospitals that, according to the UN, involved armed resistance to access to services for women and girls. The girls faced threats of acid attacks and poison, yet resisted with the help of armed guards who continue to test their air and water daily. Mount Holyoke has our own hero in the region, alumnus Sadiqa Basiri Salim, founder of the Urag Learning Center, who is among those being recognized and will speak to us later via video. Sadiqa's passion has led to the expansion of educational opportunities for women by offering leadership and management training at her country's first community college for women. Mount Holyoke applauds and supports these initiatives through our curriculum, in our McCulloch Center for Global Initiatives, and in the Weissman Center for Leadership, along with programs such as the Women in Public Service Project. In collaboration with the U.S. State Department, our sister colleges, and the Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars, these efforts are designed to foster the next generation of women leaders who will work toward global justice and the economic empowerment of all women. After 175 years, Mary Lyon's dream of permanency through vitality, prosperity, and usefulness lives on. As we look to the next 175 years, we do so with a certitude that her spirit of innovation will continue to inspire us to reach new heights, and the knowledge that the women of influence we celebrate today will be joined by our current students who are already making history. Thank you so much for being here to celebrate with us. We're now going to take a look at a few of those women of influence.
Good afternoon. My name is Martha Ackman. I wonder if this ever happens to you. Late in the fall, when I leave this campus after dark, I often pass the college gates and the library all lit up, and I think about the women who lived on this spot a century or more ago. My mind sort of wanders, and I see the big 4-story seminary building, the one that didn't even have the front steps in place on the first day. And in my reverie, I take the roof off and I look inside. And it doesn't take me long before I think about Emily Dickinson. The thought that always astounds me is that for one singular year, 1847 to 1848, the great American poet and the great pioneer of women's education lived together in that building. They passed each other in the hallway, they studied together, they ate the same roast veal and squash. In many ways, the two women couldn't have been more different. Mary Lyon had just turned 50. She had 2 years left to live. Raised in rural Buckland, Massachusetts, she stayed on the family farm, and after her father died and her mother remarried and moved, she stayed. An act of independence and will that would define her whole life. Mary Lyon, a friend said, grabbed knowledge by the handfuls. And although she didn't know it, nearly every letter students wrote home mentioned her. One young woman, Lydia Pomeroy, offered this description. Miss Lyon, she said, is a little fat woman who don't look at all like a lady, but she knows enough. Emily Dickinson was 16, young by Mount Holyoke standards, when she rode 11 miles over the notch to South Hadley. She was well prepared both by her classes at Amherst Academy and by a family tradition of educating women. That year would be the longest she would ever spend away from family or friends, her first taste of independence. What did she think of the seminary? One thing is certain, Emily Dickinson wrote, and that is that Miss Lyon and all the teachers seem to consult our happiness and comfort in everything they do. And that, you know, is pleasant. On the whole, there is an ease and grace and desire to make one another happy, which delights and at the same time surprises me very much. If we take a broad view of Mount Holyoke during that year, we see a posture that I believe influenced the poet. Mary Lyon believed women were capable of learning for themselves. Take the study of science, for example. Lyon was one of the pioneers in using laboratory experiments in the classroom. Instead of learning by memorizing a text, she threw young women into the lab where they would tackle problems, take chances, make mistakes, try again, confront the unknown, and rely on their own intellect to make sense of the world. Above my desk, I have a copy of one of Dickinson's manuscripts. The page is line after line after line of poetry, all of them crossed out. It's a lab report, really, of trial and error, a poet's search for the right amalgam of rhyme and rhythm. Years after Dickinson left Mount Holyoke, she replied unequivocally to an editor who attempted to make her verse more conversational, more conventional, I should say. "You think my gait spasmodic," she told him. "I am in danger, sir. You think me uncontrolled? I have no tribunal." Mary Lyon's insistence on young women making their own choices also extended to religion. She demonstrated that it was far more important to seriously consider questions of faith than to thoughtlessly or casually profess to believe. Although Dickinson did not join the church, she took one crucial lesson from Mary Lyon: continue questioning. If you spend time in the college's wonderful archives examining that first decade, one image of Mary Lyon surfaces: a woman in a hurry. Elizabeth Hall in 1848 wrote, "I wish you could see Miss Lyon. I know you would laugh. She is 52 years old, hard of hearing, has false teeth, wears a cap, and dresses as well as an old washwoman. Yet she is noble for doing business. She runs around here with her nose dripping and does more business than any two men." Another student, Elizabeth Haven, writing in 1839, observed, "Miss Lyon is a terrible driver and hurrier. There is no standing still where she is." This woman in a hurry, some would say obsessed with getting work done, was a commanding image for Emily Dickinson. She had never seen a woman like her, rough-hewn, tireless, focused, independent, who against enormous odds was taking on the world. "I wish you could just see her," Sarah Burnham wrote her mother in 1842. "She's constantly engaged from morning till night. I wondered the first week or two I was here that she had not been sick or crazy long ago. She has such an immense weight of care resting on her." Sick or crazy? Yes. Not in a literal sense, but in the sense that Mary Lyon acutely felt that her ambition may not be realized. It was not so much hurry that students like Emily Dickinson witnessed, it was urgency. Fed up with the social compliance required of women, Mary Lyon once angrily thundered, "My heart is sick. My soul is pained with this empty gentility, this genteel nothingness. I am doing a great work. I cannot come down." What that little fat woman who don't look at all like a lady but who knows enough taught Emily Dickinson was that women had a right to think, to dream big dreams, to move against the grain, to do great work, to change the world one stunning metaphor at a time. Later, as Emily Dickinson began writing poems, Mary Lyon's example may not have been far from her mind. Writing to her cousin Louisa, the poet asked, "Do you remember that October morning when our families went out driving and you and I in the dining room decided to be distinguished? It's a great thing to be great, Lou." It seems appropriate that Mary Lyon opened the doors to Mount Holyoke in November. At this time of year, we recognize the days are short. There's urgency in the nip of the season. Do me a favor. When you leave this hall, walk past the college gates near the spot of the old seminary. Imagine what the beginning was like. Think about those women in a hurry, the ones who crossed out all the lines and began again, the ones who believed their minds could find the answers, their hearts could choose for themselves. And maybe we'll see this place anew, all lit up against the old mountains like a beacon in the dark.
Hi, I'm Dan Citrum in the History Department here at Mount Holyoke. Most of you, I think, have heard of Frances Perkins, class of 1902. You may be familiar with the Frances Perkins program. You may know that she served as Franklin D. Roosevelt's Secretary of Labor from 1933 to 1945, the first woman cabinet member in American history, one of the main architects of the New Deal, and arguably the most influential alum in our history. We claim her legacy for the college because it was here that Perkins began her path on a life dedicated to creating a more equitable and just society. Mount Holyoke at the turn of the 20th century embodied powerful connections between women's education, feminism, and broader movements for social justice that shaped Perkins's future. Here, Fanny, as she was known then, majored in chemistry and also studied with Anna Mae Sewell, who taught political science and history. Professor Sewell brought Perkins and other students into the textile and paper mills of Holyoke and Chicopee to confront directly the realities and consequences of industrial labor. Sewell had also helped create a Mount Holyoke chapter of the National Consumers League, a group devoted to abolishing child labor and tenement sweatshops by educating the public and improving state laws. In 1902, when Perkins was a senior, Florence Kelly, the dynamic founder of the Consumers League, a pioneer in factory inspection, a key figure in the settlement house movement, addressed the Mount Holyoke chapter, deeply impressing Perkins by demonstrating how one could live a life devoted to social activism. And finally, the college's new president, Mary Woolley, with whom Perkins maintained a lifelong friendship, was busy transforming a female seminary into a modern college. Woolley made herself a force in the larger world through her position here. She was an influential voice in the fight for women's suffrage, a close ally of Jane Addams and the social settlement movement, a founding mother of the NAACP, a supporter of campaigns for organized labor, and a lifetime disarmament and peace activist. After graduation, Fanny spent several years teaching and then worked in settlement houses in Chicago, where with the muckraking socialist Upton Sinclair as her guide, she saw firsthand the dangerous workplace conditions and shabby housing endured by immigrant workers in the meatpacking industry. Later, while at a Philadelphia settlement house, she interviewed and came to know African American and immigrant women who had been forced into prostitution. By 1910, she was in New York doing graduate work at Columbia, campaigning for women's suffrage on street corners and in large public meetings, living the bohemian life in Greenwich Village, even fending off a marriage proposal from the novelist Sinclair Lewis, and making political contacts with everyone from Socialist Party activists to wealthy society women. Florence Kelly made her head of the New York office of the Consumers League, where she investigated the dismal conditions in cellar bakeries and the lives of salesgirls at Macy's and Bloomingdale's who earned $3 for a week of 16-hour days. She witnessed the disastrous Triangle Fire of 1911, which killed 146 textile workers, mostly young women and girls, trapped in a factory with its exits locked. In the aftermath, lobbying in Albany, Perkins made strategic alliances with Tammany Hall leaders and pushed through landmark legislation that limited women factory workers to a 54-hour week, banned children under 16 from factory work, and created new standards for workplace safety and inspection. Around this time, Frances Perkins, writing to the Mount Holyoke Alumni Newsletter, described the swirl of her life in New York City this way, quoting, "Lots of fun, and sometimes gives one a sense of being on the switchboard of contemporary history." She remained plugged in throughout the 1920s, working closely with New York Governors Al Smith and then Franklin Roosevelt, earning a national reputation as an authority on workmen's compensation, unemployment insurance, and workplace safety. Her appointment as Secretary of Labor in 1933 met with shrill criticism from conservative labor leaders, outraged Republicans, and plain old sexists. By this time, Perkins had absorbed a key lesson from her progressive mentors. Social justice had always moved forward through social movements, but these movements needed to harness the power of the state and public institutions to improve and even transform people's lives. And that's exactly what the key legislation of the New Deal era did, with Perkins at the switchboard. The Social Security Act, establishing the right to decent retirement for senior citizens, along with the nation's first unemployment insurance system. The National Labor Relations Act, guaranteeing for the first time in our history the legal right of American workers to join a union and engage in collective bargaining. The Fair Labor Standards Act, creating the first federal minimum wage, 25 cents an hour. Federal limits on the work week, and the first effective regulation of child labor. She also pushed hard, but failed, to make a national health insurance program a part of the New Deal. And in one measure of Perkins's challenge to entrench power conservatives in Congress, including many Democrats, mounted an unsuccessful but ugly impeachment campaign against her, including claims that she was actually a Jew and a dupe of communists. In many people's minds, the same thing. Perkins died in 1965 at age 85, but if she were to visit us today, I am confident that she would be pushing us still. She would remind us that Social Security is not an entitlement, but rather a social insurance program based on a system of universal coverage. She would point out that the current crisis facing Social Security is a political one, not an economic one, easily solved by raising or removing the cap on wages taxed, if only we had the political will to do it. And she would surely ask, why can't the principle of social insurance be applied to our healthcare system as well, so we can finally bring our country up to the same standard as the rest of the industrialized world? She would be appalled, I think, to find in America where over 15% of all citizens live below the poverty line, where more than 1 in 5 children grow up in poverty, including nearly 40% of African American children. And she would deplore the grotesque and worsening economic inequality in today's America, a brutal fact that can be measured in many ways, but here's one. The wealth currently held by the 6 heirs of the Walton family, founders of the Walmart fortune, equals the aggregate wealth held by the lowest 42% of Americans, roughly 49 million families. And finally, I think she would tell us that after 3 decades of government bashing and historical amnesia, we need to reassert, as a matter of historical fact and moral obligation, that public institutions have been critical to improving the quality of lives and advancing the common good. Charity, philanthropic giving, foundation grants surely have a role, but any vision of social justice must be rooted in broad-based social movements and vigorous public debate rather than being defined by private philanthropy. Today, the switchboard of history is perhaps an international call center in Karachi. Last September, we read of the horrible fire that killed 295 workers in one of that city's textile factories. Accounts in the New York Times and elsewhere made parallels to the Triangle Fire of a century ago, when clothing manufacturing was centered in New York rather than South Asia. Just weeks before the Karachi fire, a US-based monitoring group, Social Accountability International, had approved the safety standards at the Karachi factory, and they've been stonewalling investigators ever since. That firm receives financial backing from 20 transnational corporations, each contributing up to $65,000 annually to be corporate program members. And these companies include Gucci, The Gap, and the Walt Disney Company. Catastrophes like this may help inspire a Pakistani version of Frances Perkins. And I can imagine her coming to Mount Holyoke to study. And if she does, the spirit of Frances Perkins and the fierce ideals of social justice that have helped define Mount Holyoke will surely welcome and inspire her. And so in closing, I'm already looking forward to the 200th. And as my mother might have said, we should all live and be well. I'll see you in 2037. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm not Sadiqa Basira Salim, your next presenter. I'm Carolyn Deedle, the director of the Frances Perkins Program, and I was delighted to be asked to introduce Sadiqa, who could not be with us today because of visa problems. I know she's very disappointed, and I hope she's watching right now. It was certainly a privilege to get to know this remarkable young woman as a Frances Perkins Scholar when she came to Mount Holyoke in 2005 through the Initiative to Educate Afghan Women. Prior to coming to Mount Holyoke, Sadiqa had founded schools and literacy programs for girls. You've already heard that right now she's engaged in work to establish a community college in Afghanistan, and it's going very well. While at Mount Holyoke, Sadiqa was among 6 women, including Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, who was honored by the Vital Voices Global Partnership. In addition, upon graduation, she was given the Presidential Award, and just last year, she received the Mary Lyon Award from the Alumni Association. Though Sadiqa could not be here in person today, this true daughter of Mary Lyon would not be thwarted, so she sent us her presentation from Afghanistan via YouTube, and I'm happy to share it with you now. Thank you.
President Pasquarella, distinguished deans and professors, talented mohos, and honored guests, it's my pleasure to give a speech on empowering women and improving the world, what MSC is all about, as we celebrate 175 years of success of our beloved Mount Holyoke College. As we all know, we have been living in a world where both men and women have been challenged by tremendous political, social, environmental, and economic turmoil. The escalating political tension in Middle East and South Asia, the growing impact of injustices due to issues of race, class, gender, and ethnicity, the increasing environmental degradation due to depletion of the resource of fresh water, and the worsening economic crisis in the last 40 years continue to hurt everyone across the globe. That said, there's one encouraging thing we can cheer about: the shifting perception of the role women can play in addressing global challenges. The overly used statement that women should be fully engaged in decision-making had remained just a theory until the Beijing Declaration on Women in 1995. Most important, it has been less than a decade since most world leaders for the first time agreed that it's crucial for women to actively participate in social, political, environmental, and economic arenas. Most of the 20th century's leaders have realized that women's participation in social activities have led women to liberate themselves from the oppression, exploitation, and mistreatment which continue to endanger humanity. Women's participation in politics gives women a voice in the policies that affect not only their lives, but the lives of everyone else in society. Women's participation in the environmental debate is all about protection of the current and future civilization. Women's participation in the field of business enables women to make decisions about their resources and those of others to ensure stable economic growth that will benefit everyone regardless of their gender. These are the lessons we have learned in the wake of successive challenges, yet they have been values nurtured at Mount Holyoke since early 19th century. Women's social empowerment can be exemplified in the life of the founder of our college, Mary Lyon. She got an education herself and provided it to other women, and as a result has constantly contributed to unleashing the full potential of women and stopping the mistreatment and exploitation of women not only in South Hadley and in the United States, but across the world. The gains of women's political empowerment have been witnessed in the life of Frances Perkins. The Social Security Act drafted during President Roosevelt under Perkins addresses financial needs of elderly, widows, single mothers, people with disabilities, and those who are unemployed. Dr. Katie Walter Anthony, class of 1998, who spends 5 months a year in Alaska, Siberia, and the Arctic Circle, searching for solutions to climate change, illustrates how women are committed to the safety of our planet. When women have power to make decisions, they typically make smart decisions. A perfect example is Anne Armstrong, class of 1893. As a businesswoman, she held several senior management positions and transformed the lives of several young men and women by becoming the first woman lecturer at Harvard University's and Dartmouth College schools of business. I wish I had more time to have touched on the life of many other Mount Holyoke women who have worked hard and have contributed to the revitalization of their societies and economies. Yet, I intend to draw your attention to the commitment of a few of our recent Mount Holyoke graduates, my classmates. They believe Mount Holyoke women do not merely graduate with degrees in their hands. They graduate with a strong sense of responsibility on their shoulders. Caitlin Haley teaches children impacted by autism in Oakland, California. Her goal is to help her students prepare in order to mainstream with their same-age peers. Taking a break from her PhD program, Marcia Schenck has been traveling around the world to explore challenges and solutions to global labor migration. Lauren Fields is concerned about how we treat our home, the planet, Earth. While pursuing her PhD, She also takes time to address the impact of the fishing industry on Chilean sea bass in Antarctica in order to better understand this species before the population is critically endangered by overfishing. Inspired by the college's committed leadership, educated by the most dedicated professors, and supported by other bright community members at Mount Holyoke, just like my classmates, I also could not accept staying neutral in the face of harsh realities in my country, Afghanistan. Given the 3-decade-long war, continued corruption, systematic violence against women, and increasing poverty, I felt obliged to invest in women's higher education. My education at Mount Holyoke not only shaped my leadership skills, but also gave me enough confidence to establish Afghanistan's first women community college and transition it to a 4-year degree granting program where 142 Afghan women have been getting an education so they can become independent thinkers and agents of change. Finally, I assert that women who are dedicated and do not yet have access to quality education in their home states or countries should be encouraged to be part of this wonderful college. Mount Holyoke is a school of transformation and aims to empower women to improve the world wherever they go. Let me conclude by conveying best wishes sent by Azia Hossain, class of 2009 from Bangladesh, who is turning 26 today on November 8th. May Mount Holyoke have many more successful years to come and continue sending out strong women to better the world. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Sojin Lee, and I'm the president of the Student Government Association. It is my honor to be part of this extraordinary ceremony today, and I am so proud to be a Mount Holyoke woman. I cannot express how grateful I am to be a part of Mary Lyon's legacy in continuing our rich history filled with uncommon women. In just a moment, I will invite the V8s, the oldest continuing female a cappella group in the nation, to lead us in the alma mater. But before I do so, I would like to thank all of you in joining us today and invite you to join us at 2 other celebratory events this evening. From 5:30 to 8, there is an exhibit of period fashion from Mount Holyoke's collection of antique clothing. It will be held at the lobby of the Rook Theater. And following that, at 8 p.m., the music department is putting on a special 175th anniversary concert in the Abbey Chapel. I hope that you can join us for both events. And now, the V8s will come up. They will first sing both verses of the alma mater for us, and then will invite us to join them in singing it again all together. So without further ado, the Mount Holyoke Victory 8s.
O Mount Holyoke, we pay thee devotion in the fervor of youth that is strong. The courage of right is thy garland, our life's alma mater, thy song. So from east and from west now we gather, and united in firm love to thee, all years are as one, and their loyal pledge Mount Holyoke forever shall be. Mount Holyoke forever shall be. Through the heart of a new day's endeavor breathes the life of the old days that live. For what thou hast given we honor, but we love thee for what we can give. So when soft in a whisper thou callest, to thee, shall answer Mount Holyoke to thee.
Now we'd love for you all to join us in song. So, woohoo! Okay, ready? Yeah!
O Mount Holyoke, we pay thee devotion in the fervor of youth that is strong. The courage of right is thy garland, our lives' alma mater, thy song. So from east and from west now we gather, and united in firm love to thee. All years are as one, and their loyal pledge Mount Holyoke forever shall be. Mount Holyoke forever shall be. Through the heart of a new day's endeavor, breathes the life of the old days that live. For what thou hast given we honor, but we love thee for what we can give. So when soft in a whisper thou callest, for the treasures unlocked by thy key, our